التحقوا بالقاعة لمباشرة فعاليات هذا اليوم الثاني من منتدى البنك الإسلامي للتنمية. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to join us in order to start the second day of this event. Thank you so much. ندعو السيدات والسادة المشاركين الالتحاق بالقاعة حتى يتسنى لنا مباشرة هذا اليوم الثاني من فعاليات المنتدى الإسلامي للتنمية. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Good morning, Excellencies, CEUs, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second day of the ISDB Private Sector Forum. This day is held under the slogan, Partnering for Impact, the Arab Coordination Group, ACG, and the private sector driving sustainable development. Today, we gather to promote the 50th anniversary of the Arab Coordination Group and to highlight also the vital role of partnership with the private sector in advancing the sustainable development goals. This first panel will explore innovative collaboration strategies aimed at addressing global challenges and fostering inclusive economic growth. Before we start the first panel, we invite you, ladies and gentlemen, to see this short video about ICG.
Global challenges, evolving economic realities, and population growth are placing increased demand on nations worldwide. For almost 50 years, the Arab Coordination Group, ACG, has united in support of a brighter, more equitable future for developing nations and their people. We are a strategic alliance of 10 national and regional institutions with a shared vision of helping uplift nations through global collaboration, project financing, and technical assistance. As one of the largest donor groups by combined financial resources, we focus on delivering sustainable impact to improve the prospects of communities worldwide. From innovative infrastructure financing to funding youth and women's empowerment programs, we are invested in creating long-term outcomes that support inclusive, social, and economic development. We are proud of what we have achieved over our 50 years, and we are committed to continued collaboration to support an equitable future. Together, we achieve greater impact. Together, we are ACG.
And to moderate this first panel, I have the honor to invite Mr. Ibrahim Shukri, Director of Partnership, Global Advocacy and Resource Mobilization, Islamic Development Bank, ISDB. I invite also Dr. Mohammed Al-Yami, General Manager, Development Effectiveness Office, ICD, to join us, please. Mr. Khaled Khadoudi, Director of Business Development, Private Sector Operation, OPEC Fund. And also we invite Mr. Khaled Hamza, Vice President of Private Sector Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development. Thank you so much for joining us.
We also invite Mr. Munsif Qalushi from Badia. Please join us, please.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Mr. Shukri, you have the floor. Maybe we need another chair for Mr. Shukri. So this panel is about to explore innovative collaboration strategies aimed at addressing global challenges and fostering inclusive economic growth. So, Mr. Ibrahim Shukri, you have the floor for starting this panel. Thank you. You can use this mic also, if you want.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, and a very good morning to each one of you, distinguished guests, panelists, and participants. Welcome to our session today titled Partnering for Impact, the Arab Coordination Group and the Private Sector in Driving Sustainable Development. My name is Ibrahim Shukri. I'm the Director of Partnerships in the Islamic Development Bank, and I'm honored to moderate this session today with my dear colleagues and guests. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Arab Coordination Group. For those who don't know, the Arab Coordination Group is an alliance of 10 financial institutions work locally, regional, and globally. And they are working in a very coordinated way to support our member countries, our common member countries, to achieve their development goals. And today is the 50th year after this very hard and successful work. This reminds us of the significant strides we have made in fostering sustainable development through strategic alliance and coordination efforts. Today's session aims to explore the synergies between the Arab Coordination Group and the private sector, focusing on collaborative strategies to address global development challenges and enhance economic growth. We have an esteemed panel of experts who will share their insights and experience on how we can leverage these partnerships to drive impactful outcomes. Without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Muhammad Al-Yami, General Manager, Development Effectiveness Office, Islamic Corporation for the Development of the Private Sector, ICD. Please give him a round of applause. We have Mr. Khalid Khadouri, Director of Business Development, Private Sector Operations of the OPIC Fund, coming all the way from Vienna. So welcome, Brother Khalid. We have also Mr. Khalid Hamza, Vice President of the Private Sector of the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, based in Kuwait. Mr. Khalid Hamza, welcome to our event. And lastly, we have Mr. Munsif Al-Qalushi, Advisor to the President of Badia. As you know, Badia is the covering Africa, and he is very welcome to join us today. Thank you very much. So I think we will start our first session. It will be, inviting each of you to provide like a 5 minutes intervention on your organization role in fostering private sector development and your strategic priorities in the future. So, Dr. Al-Yami, we start with you, if you allow us. You can use your mic, please. The other mic.
طيب السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وأسعد الله صباحكم جميعا. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. So the Islamic Corporation for Development Private Sector is the private sector arm of the Islamic Development Bank Group, and our mandate is really to support private sector and all sorts of entities, SMEs, corporate, and even financial institutions. But before that, I would like to congratulate the ACG for the 50th anniversary. I think this, is a big milestone where ACG can play a fundamental role in bringing the private sector to the area of developing countries and developing people, I would say. So ICD started in 1999, and it serves 56 member countries in 5 continents. As we speak today, I think we finance over 500 projects with more than $6 billion in all in multiple sectors. But since we are speaking today about especially maybe the SMEs, one of the main products of ICD is the line of finance, where we use the local banks as intermediaries to reach SMEs. Our target in 2029 is to reach 30,000 SMEs in all the member countries that we operate in, financing, plus also some technical assistance, especially in the area of accessing to finance. We were just in a brief discussion with both Khalid early this morning about how can we enhance the accessibility to Islamic to finance in general. For ICD's Islamic finance, but also how to have the enabling environment where SMEs can understand how to access finance, but also how to be bankable, which is, I think, one of the major issues. We also do equity, we do direct finance, we do advisory, we also do sukuk. So that's in a nutshell ICD in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Yami. I think ICD has been very active in different areas and has a very wide list of products, from equity to financing to SMEs. Even ICD was a pioneer in establishing leasing companies around the Muslim world and used this to leverage on its presence in opening new markets and bringing a lot of support to the SMEs. What is the future direction of ICD? What is the focus areas of ICD in the future?
I think since we are doing, I would say, exceptional work in line of finance, this will continue for sure. We might just introduce different financial institutions. As you just mentioned rightly, we, I think, have 7 or 8 Ijara companies in member countries, but also we are helping I think we help more than 30 banks to have Islamic window. And the purpose of Islamic window is to have Islamic products to clients, but also to have line of finance to these banks. So for SMEs, we'll continue as is. It's the main funds is big, opportunity for ICD, and it can be done definitely. But yeah, mainly fund and line of finance for SMEs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yami. We move now to Brother Khalid, and I think OPEC is a brand name, has been very successful in many operations. I would also like to start my question about what have you done recently, what is your strategic directions, and then I will take you for another question. Please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction and the presentation. I would first like to start off about the ACG. We're not just celebrating the 50-year milestone. It's not just a milestone, but a statement of purpose. And in the 50 years, we've seen the ACG evolve. And it's very timely, and thank you for arranging today a discussion on the private sector, because private sector is really the future of the countries we work in and the importance of what we do. Maybe to give a bit of background about the OPEC Fund and who we are, we're the multilateral development bank set up by the OPEC member countries to work in non-OPEC member countries. So we're very unique, similar to Badea, for example, where we don't work in our member countries, but we work in our partner countries. As the OPEC Fund, we've been around for 50 years as well, so we're also celebrating our anniversary next year. 25 years of private sector. We've committed over $30 billion across 125 countries globally. The private sector is a key part of our story, and it's no longer a complementary means as it was set up 25 years ago, but it's a necessary means for development finance institutions. We've committed over $10 billion for the private sector and over $2 billion in the last 3 years. A lot of this has to be innovative. Private sector has to be dynamic. It has to be growing, and we're very happy. There's a lot of success stories. Maybe people don't know enough about it within the ACG, what the private sector has done. So as Dr. Mohammed mentioned earlier, for example, Islamic financing. With ICD, we were shareholders in Mauritania Leasing. It started off as a small leasing company in Mauritania and is now Banque Populaire de Mauritanie, the 3rd largest bank in the country. With ICD, we financed the power project in Uzbekistan, which recently won an award as the best global power and transmission deal. This was alongside ICD. With Badea, we became shareholders, for example, in TDB, Trade and Development Bank, providing equity across Africa to help the bank expand, or one of the first IPPs in Senegal. So there's a lot of history and stories in private sector along the ACG, but we're looking forward to the next 50 years doing more in private sector and enabling it more. And as the OPEC Fund, you asked about our strategy. One of our 4 pillars of our new strategy we launched 2030 is private sector. It's the key driver going forward for us. Thank you.
Excellent, and I think one of the success factors also was a number of joint financing for PPPs with the bank, and I think this was maybe a more straightforward kind of financing, given the size of PPPs and the quality of our partners in the PPPs. How do you see the PPPs moving in the future for OPEC Fund?
That's a very interesting question. So as OPEC Fund, we have a global mandate. We cover 125 countries, so there's no one size fits all. What structure could work, for example, in Cote d'Ivoire, where you have a very bankable off-taker that's internationally rated, could be very different in another country where you have an off-taker who is not very bankable. So there's no really one size that fits all. What we've seen, though, is the importance of all parties working together. So for a PPP structure to work, it's all parties working together. And this is where the ACG can come in as well. We have the sovereign lending windows, which can create the enabling environments to allow bankable PPP structures happen. You have the private sector that can come in and finance the IPPs themselves, the power projects. And then you also have the sovereign team coming in and doing the transmission lines. So as OPEC Fund, we have an example of PPPs, for example, in Mozambique, where as the private sector, we funded the power plant, but then our sovereign window came in and funded the transmission line. But in terms of bankable structures, it's really no one size fits all. It's stakeholder, it's a balance of risk and reward. Everyone has their own interests. Government wants to reduce their costs. The sponsors want to try increase their IRR. The DFIs, we want to make sure there's a developmental impact and there's a tangible outcome. So it's a matter of people having aligned interests for them to be able to work.
Great. So let me move to my colleague, Brother Monsef Al-Qalouchi, and I think I wanted, because Khaled highlighted some of the innovative financings, and it's very important to always be, innovative, especially in difficult markets like Africa. Badia is dealing in Africa, and many of the projects in Africa is difficult. It needs de-risking, it needs enhancement of the rating, and it's very difficult to bring some partners to high-risk projects. So how is Badia doing in this regards?
Sure. Thank you, Ibrahim. Maybe just a quick introduction on Badia. In fact, we were established in 1973. A couple of, not far away from here, the Palace of Nation in Algiers was when it was established as an entity under the Arab League. And the idea, as Khalid was mentioning, our mandate was essentially to, as Arab country, to help promote economic development in sub-Saharan Africa, and also encourage essentially the partnership between the two regions, between the Arab world and Africa. And so the initial focus of Badia has been really on building infrastructure and helping on sovereign lending and helping government developing the infrastructure, roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, all what's required for the private sector to develop. About, I think, a number of specialists in the development world, development finance world, figured out fairly quickly, probably in the year 2000, that this would not be enough, that government on their own, or even multilateral, would not be enough to finance all the needs, not only poverty reduction, etc., but also developing their economic infrastructure. And so, just like OPEC Fund, or just like now the Arab Fund, Badia created its own private sector window in 2015, roughly. And the idea was to target not only sovereign lending, but also the private sector, especially trade finance, private sector. We do PPPs as well. And this has been quite a successful endeavor, especially with the help of the people around here in this conference through the ACG. The one last thing, maybe we can talk about it afterwards. The one thing that we also been focusing beyond the sovereign lending and the private sector is also to think about innovative ways to help crowd in the private sector. And so I'm thinking about, as we mentioned, some participation, equity participation we've done in other development banks, local development banks, but also in financing some private equity funds that are key essentially to deploy this money. And the idea is we are trying to think through how do we put in place the conditions. For example, as you know, it's very difficult to have very bankable project, at least in sub-Saharan Africa. And so having a preparation fund where you can finance those studies and make them acceptable to private sector is key. And so this has also been an area of focus for the bank over the last few years, where we essentially try to catalyze, if you will, and crowd in private sector as well.
Great, and I think you highlighted very important subject is the need for project preparation facilities That's a key for developing quality entry at projects. And I think also you highlighted trade, which is very important for Africa. And generally, the shift to private sector, as many of the countries are facing, burdens with the borrowing levels, and they are trying to shift more and more to the private sector. And this is maybe why the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development started their journey recently in the private sector. So maybe Khaled Hamza can give us like highlights how this idea started and how big are you coming in the private sector space?
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, and thank you for having me on this panel. Maybe I'll start by also admitting that we're 50 years old, but and we've done the 38 billion of investments across the region. We represent 30% of the joint Arab financing in this region, the Arab world. But I'm also pleased to say that we are the youngest when it comes to private sector. So. Our private sector department was created 8 months ago, and as we come young into this field, yes, we are less experienced, but we have ambitions, and we're less bound with certain policies, and we're willing to explore how to do things differently. And I think this is much needed in the environment that we're in right now. I think across the region. Where our mandate is the Arab world, there's been a realization that private sector has to lead on economic growth. And as the Arab Fund, we've been very responsive to this by creating the private sector entity or department from within, and we're starting to engage. But at the same time, as we build up our capacities, what I want to highlight is that the ACG is playing a big role for us. It's playing a big role in the sense that it's helping us, build our capacity on one hand, but it's also helping us in providing what the private sector really needs. So just maybe a couple of weeks ago, we were on a mission in Egypt, and we were talking to one of our clients who has a lot of operations inside, he's very big in Egypt, a lot of operations inside of Africa, but a lot of operations also now in Saudi and other Arab countries, and is looking for a financial solution. Working with a lot of banks can be a hassle, a lot of legal work with different requirements, and it came to, for us it was very simple. It's like, we started talking about the Arab Fund, but very, very quickly we started actually talking about the ACG and what we can provide. We have Badia for Africa, which we can support. We have, if they have ambition, and they do have ambition to go to Central Asia, then we have Khaled sitting there who can help them on that. If they want Islamic products to change things a little bit, we're all sitting in one place. And for the Arab Fund, we host the Secretariat of the ACG, so we can actually be the gateway for sophisticated clients in this region to grow regionally, to grow internationally, and to diversify their products, their needs, all in one place. And I think for us, this is the role that we want to play. We want to come in, we want to see how we can draw on each other's strength and bring in the experience. As Arab Fund, we have a lot of experience in certain sectors. We've financed approximately 90% of interconnections, electrical interconnections between the Arab world and Europe, for example. We've done numerous work on water. And today's challenges, if you look at them, is actually energy and water, especially in this region. So I think with all that, I'm very pleased to be on this distinguished panel to be able to discuss these points. And offline, we also talk to each other about how we can support each other and grow each other's balance sheet in the market.
Thank you so much, and we wish you all the best. My last question for you, how do you see the synergies, or how do you expect from the other ACG members in support to the Arab funds in this new journey? There has been many years of experience in ICD, OPEC, Badia also joined, but I think, how do you see in a structured way the ACG can work together to support the private sector?
That's a very good question, and we are already talking about this. As I mentioned, 2 weeks ago, I met a couple of clients who, first of all, don't just require our funding, but require funding from different institutions in order to reach different geographies. On our own, we are responsible for 22 countries where we can invest, basically. But together, we can do more than 150 countries. So it's that coordination can give access to the Arab private sector to the world. In terms of coordination, what's very important, and this is what we are also talking about, is how do we build the trust in each other's processes and policies so that we can rely on each other when it comes to approvals to clients and so forth. So is our due diligence process rigorous enough? Can we rely on each other in terms of the due diligence? When one institution looks at a company, that we basically all look at the same thing. Yes, we do have different thresholds when it comes to taking risk. Some people are overexposed in one country and less exposed in the other, and that affects their decision. But at the end of the day, in terms of the process that we undertake, in terms of the policies or the impact that we want to achieve, we shouldn't really be veering away from each other. We should more or less have the same policy or the same view of what we want to achieve. I think this is where we should have a bigger role in terms of the ACG coordinating these kind of things together.
And I fully agree with you. I think complementing each other and relying on our joint resources is much more efficient to tackle some of the areas as you mentioned. Thank you. I'll go back to Monsef and ask him about the priorities. What is your when it comes to the sector priorities, how do you look at your direction at this point?
Thank you. So we've, as I mentioned, our priority has always been traditionally infrastructure. For us, we build the infrastructure so that people can use them. We connect. Talking about interconnection, Badea has been quite key in building, for example, roads between regions or between landlocked countries. And so that's been a key focus for us. Now, as I mentioned, in about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there was an increased emphasis on larger, especially on the private sector as well. And we've got a number of pillars that we're now focusing on. The first one is the SMEs, as my brother was mentioning, is for us, SMEs is quite an important role. It is key for us to help support banks in sub-Saharan Africa so that they can essentially on-lend to entrepreneurs. Women is a big focus for us as well. So that anchor of SMEs is quite key. We've got also, obviously, the trade. That's been an important focus for us because, as you know, sub-Saharan Africa has not yet fully developed its interconnectedness between countries. So a lot of the flows are coming from outside of the region, and financing needs are humongous. I think there was a study by the African Development Bank where there's maybe a gap of 100 billion, 150 billion in terms of trade finance for all the sub-Saharan Africa. And so that for us is a key area where we focus on. Agriculture, as you know, represent maybe 60-70% of the economy in sub-Saharan Africa. So for us, especially agro-processing value chain is one of the area where we tend to focus on, and we finance directly some private sector players, or we put in place the infrastructure, for example, some agro-processing zones. We've had a number of initiatives, by the way, with our colleagues from ACG in terms of promoting some of the agriculture infrastructure and promoting value chains, promoting exports, etc.
Thank you so much, Monsef. I would like to go back to Khaled Khadouri and congratulate him. Next month you have a big event in Vienna. It's a kind of economic forum, and I think it's an opportunity also to try to unlock many of the investors and donors to come and join the private sector. So if you give us quick highlights about this event and what are the main messages expected from your event next month.
Thank you, Ibrahim. It is indeed our flagship event, the forum, which we started a few years back. And it's what's interesting, last year actually at the forum, we celebrated the 25 years of our private sector, where you had the CEOs of large companies such as Aqua Power, Standard Chartered, members of the ACG and other institutions speaking about the growth of the private sector. This year, there will be a continued focus, of course, on the ACG and its 50th, but also about the OPEC fund and our strategy and how we connect people together and what we're trying to do globally. You'll have a lot of different discussions about the private sector as well, embedded. How we see it in the OPEC fund is private sector and public sector has to come hand in hand. So the way it's been structured is you'll see elements of private sector across all the different thematics that we'll be discussing. One of the key things, for example, is digitalization. Digitalization is hugely important across all the partner countries that we work in. So there'll be discussions about that. And as OPEC Fund, we're trying to support that even more. One of the big things we'll also be discussing, which we announced last year was, and we recently held a conference, was about how do you support small island developing states. And we had a big conference about that in Vienna a few weeks ago. But linking into all this, Ibrahim, maybe to take the question from another angle and to add on some of the things we've talked about, I think innovation is key for where we are in the private sector. And we're talking about Africa, we're talking about food security, we're talking about SMEs. We're very proud that last year we were part of a syndication of 400 million to the ETG group, and it was the largest syndicated loan, a sustainability-linked loan, which is quite new to Africa. This is a loan which incentivizes clients to adopt key principles that, for example, are aligned with Paris alignment or climate action. So the client actually gets a benefit and a reduction in their interest rate if they reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. So our role, and this links back into the forum, what is our role? Our role is to educate people about the importance of development and what we do. So in this deal, you help the client, you motivate them to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, have more women employment, have more sustainability, and that's what it's all about as well.
Thank you so much, and appreciate the last question to Dr. Ilyami. It's a very important question. There has been a lot of efforts in the private sector, and one thing that used to be missing in the long time is to show the effectiveness, to show the impact of these contributions and support from the private sector for development. As the head of the effectiveness team in ICD, how do you strategize and how can you make your work visible to the world and to the partners and the stakeholders? How is the most important messages in your effectiveness report for your operations?
Sure, thank you very much. Indeed, it's a very important question because if you cannot, measure it, you cannot manage it. So ICD started the monitoring and evaluation of its operations 13 or 14 years ago. I think it was 2011 when they started that. And now, as we speak today, we have a strategic framework for ICD interventions where we identify the sectors that we need to operate in, the KPIs from development point of view, but also the SDGs that we are targeting. So framework of almost 10 SDGs. Of course, not all will be investing directly, but also indirect. Then we do have, our evaluation processes from ex ante until ex post and final completed evaluation for our projects. Data is a key, and I think this is the biggest challenge of all DFIs, is just to have reliable data. We are not, an academic institution where we have the time to triangulate and have different, sources for data, then validate. So this is what we all have is, the trust between ICD and partners to have the right data, but also to have the best evaluation metrics in place. And here I would like to highlight the HEPSO network. It's the harmonized indicator for the private sector operations. started more than 10 years ago, I think even more, and it has 26 or 27 DFIs. I think also OPIC is part of the HIPSO, if I'm not mistaken, but we have many. We worked to standardize the KPIs of the development. So what do we mean by number of jobs? What do we mean by decarbonization? What do we mean by reaching to farmers, patients served, financial inclusions? And I would like to take this example to build on what Khalid Hamza was referring to. I think you asked the $1 million question about can we rely on each other? Maybe it's not the to answer the question, but I think it's a matter of trust, not between the entities nor with the individuals, but trust of the procedures that everyone is applying. And that really, if we agree to have, the same due diligence or the same, term, sheet, not exactly, but in terms of standardization, we will have more efficiency. We will have a greater exposure, as you said. Instead of 22 countries, we can reach, we can exceed 100 countries to some cases. So we are in a very deep discussion with few of the DFIs to actually have the same due diligence, but also have the same evaluation when we assess our development impact.
This is great to know, and really wish you all the best. This is very important. Like you said, it will ease the process. It will be more efficient. It will help us to work in larger transactions, and of course, not to reinvent the wheel and rely on our joint resources. We have came to the end of the questions, but we would like to open to the audience and our colleagues. If they have questions, maybe you can have 2 or 3 questions. We start with the doctoral field. If somebody can bring, please, a mic here. Anybody else? Any other? Yes, of course.
Interventions. Badia said that they are embarking on this, the PPF initiative, project preparation facility. I would like to know really if ICD and OPEC also have similar initiatives, and how can really Badia benefits from your experience in that respect. Number 2, how can really the group come, the ACGD come as a group in order to driving this sustainable development with the private sector. And I'm just saying this because we have the 4 MDBs within the group, ISDB, ICD, OPEC, Badia, and Arab Fund. So what are the perspectives really of coming as a group to help the private sector in needy continents like Africa, for example? I would like to know how can we come as a group. Always, maybe ICD said that we have really to come to same evaluation processes. There's something to be prepared in order to come as a group, and we wish really to have, ACG coming as a group in helping the private sector intervention and development in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We have also a question here.
Cornelia Meyer Resources. I was very glad to see that Mr. Khalid Hamza mentioned, water. And if you look at the water, energy, food nexus, climate change is a big issue around the region. How is the Arab Coordination Group working together on climate adaptation? Because again, it affects food, it affects water, affects food and energy.
Thank you so much. So let us maybe address those two questions. First is the project preparation facility. I think this is very important initiative that has been most of us, I think, is handling, and on the public sector we are also putting this PPF, but also within the ISDB for the private sector we are encouraging private sector also operations to have an access to this project preparation facility. I think the question was more to Badia. I think, Monsef, if you can shed light about how size is the PPF you have, and how do you see this moving forward to help preparing and the quality of your projects.
Sorry, I missed the first part of your question on?
Project preparation facility.
Oh, okay, PPF. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Osman. Let me just do maybe just one comment in general, because I think it's the same theme, which is how do we make sure that we work closer together as a coordination group. I think multilateralism is a bit under pressure these days. It doesn't mean that it needs to be one way or the other. It doesn't have to be bilateral or multilateral exclusively. But I think we've got a duty, especially as Arab organizations, to essentially leverage on what's been achieved historically between our institutions. I'm looking at Khalid right here. We've been cooperating, I think, in sovereign lending in sub-Saharan Africa for maybe 40 years or so. And so we finance, obviously the Islamic Development Bank has been also a traditional partner, and we've essentially been leading and conducting projects on the ground together. We've been even sometimes managing the project on behalf of OPEC Fund or on behalf of the Islamic Development Bank, or both. And so just in general, I think there's just a general message that regardless of the topic, whether it's a project preparation fund or whether it's climate mitigation or adaptation, the fact is we've shown that there's a strength in working together and deploying together. If you allow me just a quick note on the project preparation fund, so that there's a number of initiatives that have been happening, but I think it really calls for greater synergy between us. You know that the biggest problem, especially in developing countries, is essentially getting projects that are well-defined, that have a business plan, where there's visibility, where there's transparency. And this has been quite an important, a very key stumbling block for us in sub-Saharan Africa. So we're very, very glad that we put in place those initiatives. And we're working together with our partners to make sure that we have those projects being ready and prepared essentially overall. And one last thing, if you allow me. We still have time? Just one quick one on the question on climate. So we've been at the forefront. OPEC Fund has been leading, for example, an initiative on clean cooking. But for ourselves at Badea as well, we've been quite active, for example, in reforestation, planting mangroves, etc. So that's an important condition. Helping infrastructure is important, but also thinking about the future of sub-Saharan Africa, for example, is quite key. Africa will be the most impacted of all, and so we cannot be blind to it, and we need to make sure that we plan ahead and that we combine development and adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just to also share my experience, whenever one of the ACGs have developed, project preparation, feasibility study, usually it is, shared with others, whoever wants to use it and rely on it to start their own financing. So I think the coordination is happening here. Anybody else would like to comment? Yes, Khalid, please.
Just to answer the gentleman's question about what we're doing in project preparation, and also about climate adaptation there. And also just to add on from what Munsif said, we're very proud of the partnership on the sovereign side with Badea, and then also how we supported Badea in establishing the private sector and helping them with some of the transactions to get to where we are from the private sector. This collaboration within ACG, it's always been there and will continue. And then on the project preparation, just to answer your question, we've focused on this window quite recently. we've launched an innovative financing unit that we have within the fund where we focus on items such as project preparation. And we have great success stories with some other MDBs such as the Asian Development Bank or some of the Latin American banks where we do these project preparation facilities both for sovereign and for private sector. So a recent example is one we did a bit far from home where we are today, but one we did in Dominican Republic where we provided technical assistance to help a bank improve its gender lending, women SME lending, a topic we were discussing today. So it's a big part of what we do. It's a very important part. You need to have, especially what we were discussing before, the challenge of PPPs. You need these project preparation facilities to make deals bankable and to help companies come off the ground. Going to climate adaptation, as you know, the ACG announced a 24 billion climate plan that's going well on track. And also as the OPEC fund, as Munsif mentioned, we've had the Clean Cooking Initiative. What we've also had was a nature-based solutions hub with the Asian Development Bank that we launched, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the COPs, which we're looking to replicate and scale beyond Asia into Africa as well. So these are some of the actions that we're trying to do on the climate adaptation side. What you said about water, it's completely correct. And if I'm being very honest, I think private sector involvement in water is not enough. I think public sector has been a lot. And as the OPEC fund, we've done a lot in that space. But for private sector, in a lot of our countries in this region, it hasn't been yet made fully bankable for the private sector, what we've seen, the water projects. We've seen improvements in the last few years, some countries with some flagship projects. There's some big ones coming up. But I think there's more to do to get that scale in the water sector, as we've seen in the renewable IPPs. There's still, what I mentioned earlier, there is still in that balance of risk-reward, who bears it, who bears the costs. And more should be done in the private sector in that space.
Excellent, thank you so much. So I don't see any more questions. One last question? Yes, please, last question. Here.
Thank you. My name is Osama from Palestine. I'm representing Palestine Investment Fund. Actually, my question is about the role that the ASG can play to mitigate risk associated with investing in Palestine, particularly during such critical situation. Although we have some great partnership with the ISDB and the Arab Fund, but we are ambitious and looking for more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let me answer your question because simply all of the Arab coordination is very, very active in Palestine. As you know, there is the Al-Aqsa Fund managed by the Islamic Development Bank. And every year, this fund is really supported by many of the Arab Coordination Group, providing a percentage of their, profits to feed this fund, which is working actively in Palestine. So I can assure you that most of the Arab Coordination Group, through the Al-Aqsa Fund, and also maybe directly in some cases, are also supporting. So thank you again for your question. And gentlemen, if you have any 30 seconds last comments, maybe you start with Khalid. Just a final quick comment in a positive mood to the private sector.
Well, yes, I mean, it's, I think the positive thing to say is it's not lack of money. When we came together as ACG, we invested over $10 billion to respond to the COVID crisis. I don't know any other institution that invested that amount of money. So it's not about the money. I think it's about the coordination, and we are going into that direction. It's about defining the eligibility of projects and unifying our view in terms of what makes a project eligible to access that fund. So the good news is we're talking and working about it.
Thank you so much. Munsif?
Yes, so there is strength in us working together. We have very complementary profiles as Arab organization, And to me, again, multilateralism is going to be important. The fact that we can play to our various competencies, to our region of operations, to our experiences, to our fund. If we put this all together, we're essentially much stronger and basically represent a lot of firepower for the Arab countries in promoting development across the world. Thank you.
Great, Khaled.
Thank you. I mean, just to echo what the colleagues said, but also I think to re-emphasize what you're seeing today, I think it's probably the first private sector discussion we've had as the ACG. And so I think this is a sign of where the ACG is trying to go in terms of private sector. So I think it's encouraging together that we can make this impact and deliver and bring in all the resources we have from ACG. So thanks again for organizing this, Ibrahim. And I think it's very positive for the ACG and for our partner countries and clients that we're having this discussion. I hope it's the first of many on what the ACG can do in private sector.
Thank you so much. And last words from Dr. Ilyami as the host.
Thank you very much. So I think, public projects are for the private sector are either too big or too complicated. So, and there are many, impact investing private sector investors who would like really to have, a profit as a return, but also social and environmental benefits. And for that, the public sector, the governments need to provide some attraction to those private sector and by de-risking or even have, a shorter sometimes tenors for the private sector to engage in a longer tenor mega projects.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at a very success story. It's one of the most successful stories between financial institutions. You are looking at 5 powerhouses who are working together and committed together to continue their journey for the private sector. I would like to thank you all for coming here today. I would like to thank Thiqa and ICD for organizing this event. And I wish you to have an opportunity after this session for a coffee networking to talk to other, maybe partners and maybe clients. So wish you all the best today. Please give a round of applause to the panelists. And we will have one quick photo, if you allow us, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ibrahim Shukri, Director of Partnership, Global Advocacy Resources, Mobilization Islamic Development Bank, ISDB, for moderating this panel. We would like to express our gratitude to the panelists who have contributed to the enrichment of this debate. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move directly to the next panel. Stay with us, please. Building a sustainable culture, strategies to foster sustainability and ethics. This is the title of the second session. This session is part of the ICD's broader initiative on sustainability and ESG awareness. It aims to thank you so much. Thank you. It aims to deepen understanding of key sustainability concepts and encourage the integration of ESG principle into day-to-day operation across sectors. So please join me to welcome to Mr. Dr. Adnan Aziz, Chief Program Officer, Global Islamic Finance Impact Program. Please, Dr. Aziz, join us to moderate this session. Thank you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to join your seats. We are going to start the second session, which is a building and a sustainable culture, strategies to foster sustainability and ethics. سيدات والسادة الحضور، ندعوكم للالتحاق بأماكنكم من فضلكم. سنواصل الجلسة الثانية مع السيدات والسادة المحاضرين. فلاحترام الوقت ندعوكم السيدات والسادة الحضور الالتحاق بأماكنكم من فضلكم. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join your seat, please.
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and fellow champions of ethical development. I am Dr. Adnan Aziz. I'm the Chief Program Officer for Global Islamic Finance Impact Program, and it is my privilege to welcome you to this session titled Building a Sustainable Culture, Strategies to Foster Sustainability and Ethics. The gathering today is not just timely, it is urgent. As the world confronts converging challenges in climate, inequality, and governance, the call for a deeper institutional culture rooted in sustainability and ethics has never been louder. Today's session forms a key pillar of ICD's broader sustainability and ESG awareness program, which aims to embed principled, lasting change into the DNA of development and finance institutions. This dialogue is inspired by the overarching theme of our annual meeting, diversifying economics and enriching lives. Sustainability is not merely about conserving natural resources, it is about empowering people, transforming systems, and unlocking innovation. It is all about that. Now, allow me to briefly introduce each of our esteemed panelists, and I would be requesting afterwards our panelists to join once I have done the introduction. So we'll start with Mr. Hussein Al-Lawati. He's the CEO of Development Bank Oman with nearly 2 decades